back to the Now Morning Show. Continuing with Tobago Thursdays, now we're touching on what you should know about diabetes. And joining us is Aneika Edwards, healthcare or health education officer rather, and Ronique Thomas, dietitian from the Community Nutrition Unit. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning, Natasha.
Hi, good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us. Let's get straight into the conversation, as we do know this is something that does affect many in society. Before we get into preventative measures, let's get the proper definition of type 2 diabetes. Aneika?
So, type 2 diabetes is a non-communicable disease that's a lifestyle disease, just to put it in its simplest form. It's a lifestyle disease that some people get based on how they live, how they eat, how they move. You get high blood sugar, and that leads to a whole slew of malfunctions throughout the body.
Well, as you mentioned, that particularly something that does come to mind is those who realize or are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes when they are young, let's say in their teenage years, and automatically one will look to, as you would have mentioned, diet. But the fact that sometimes those who do have it don't have control over their own diet, if I'm not mistaken. They're, of course, under their parents' roof, so they're eating what they are provided with, or perhaps even going outside. Specifically when it comes to eating, what recommendations do we have for the younger generation to be a bit more preventative in their habits? Maybe if we can come to you, Ronique.
Yes, no problem. When it comes to the younger generation, we always encourage, first and foremost, one of the major concerns we have now are the sugar-sweetened beverages and the consumption of those beverages, which cause rapid spikes in the blood sugar. So we see a lot of young people consuming high sugar beverages. And we also see the consumption of the type of snacks that typically cause the blood sugars to increase as well. So you have consumption of a lot of chocolates and cookies and candies and all the good stuff that we sometimes like to consume. But what tends to happen is increased consumption over time. Other environmental factors, family history, and all these different things. Over time, what it can cause is, things like blood sugar management to be disrupted, and, you develop conditions like diabetes. So we really are trying to encourage, the younger generation to, start paying particular attention to the type of things, type of snacks, and all of that you consume.
Now, as you mentioned that, Aneika, bringing you back into the conversation, what would you advise individuals do to proactively monitor their health and specifically prevent diabetes?
So, as Ronique said, one of the major factors is your diet, especially for those of us who are parents. You may have children that you're responsible for. Pay attention to what they eat and how much they move. What they eat, particularly the snacks, because that's usually the easiest way to rack up the extra sugars. And sometimes it might be seemingly simple snacks that we might be consuming, the extra potato chips, the extra chocolates. It's not always sweets, yeah? So an easy way, the shiny pack snacks. Some of these shiny pack snacks tend to be loaded with a lot of things that would send us in the wrong direction for diabetes. And then movement. Many times you get caught up in the busy life. You wake up in the morning, you get ready, you hustle, you get to school, you get to work, you do what you have to do, you run back home, but you really don't take time out to move. Unfortunately, we are living in a society where cars are the norm, cars are convenient, but when you start to look at how many minutes or hours we spend just in our cars, sitting and not moving, or we start to track how much steps we take per day, we realize we are not moving as much as we should. So the encouragement is to try to get people to move, not just children, adults, especially for those people who are more at risk. Because when you get to your 40s and your metabolism starts changing, it starts slowing down, that's when a lot of people are diagnosed with diabetes. But this is the time when you really should be trying to move more. Exercise. You don't have to go to a gym. You could walk. It's free. It's simple. We still live in a very beautiful country. Get outside, get some fresh air, get some sunlight, and move your body. You don't need to be doing CrossFit or anything that's seemingly intimidating, but you try to move as much as possible.
So we hear the call for the physical activity. As you mentioned, it's free. It's something that we all should invest in. And another thing that would automatically come to mind is mental health and the fact that that definitely is going to, let's say, level out the playing field in your brain if you want. What about stress factors? Does that contribute to diabetes in any way? And sleep as well, very important.
Absolutely. So stress and sleep are two factors that have been identified as contributing to diabetes. So life is stressful, but exercise reduces stress. So it comes right back full circle. If we move our bodies, if we get outside, that's one way to help reduce stress. If you know there are stressors in your life that can be removed, try to get rid of them. Try to remove them. Or if going outside and moving is a way to ignore them for a while to help reduce those stress levels, do that. Try to get consistent sleep, not just sleep. We have to be consistent. If you could set a bedtime and a wake up time, 7 hours is plenty for some people. It seems impractical sometimes given the lifestyles that we live, but try for a minimum of 7 hours. Set a bedtime, be consistent. If you know you'll be going to bed 9 o'clock every night, which is kind of early, but 10 o'clock every night, set your bedtime. Try to stick to it. It helps reduce your stress. It helps encourage better sleep hygiene. Make your bed nice and comfy. Make sleep comfortable. Rest when you can consistently every night. Strive to get that 7 to 10 hours of sleep, and that will help reduce your stress, and that will help prevent diabetes.
I'm glad that you mentioned specifically when it comes to sleep hygiene and also that duration as well, because we do live in an age, of course, where we are awake. As you said, 9 is early for some people, but the critical importance of sleeping and the fact that it has been proven scientifically to reduce stress, it's necessary in order for your body to basically flush out and start again. We need to continue to have that conversation. So thank you so much for that, Aneika. Before we come back to you, Ronique, which is very important when it comes to our diet, my final question for you as of now, Aneika, would be, are there any resources or community programs that we can look to and get more information from in order to help make these lifestyle changes?
One of the challenges we see as a society is that people tend to not check on themselves. One of our greatest resources would be our health centers or health facilities. Our services are still free. They are still accessible. Know your numbers. Go into a health center as soon as you can. Find out what's going on with your body. Check on yourself. Find out what your blood sugar levels are. Find out what your blood pressure reading is. It's a good start. Once you know what's taking place, you know whether you need to add medication, add exercise, lose weight. Have an idea of your numbers, check your weight against your height, get your BMI done. At minimum, go to a health facility. Know your numbers, and that will be the best start to preventing or treating with diabetes.
And of course, as you mentioned, that's something to take into consideration is how we treat ourselves and how we treat our bodies. Ronique, bringing you back into the conversation, that word of carbohydrate floated through our conversation just a little bit earlier, which many have come to see in a negative light and not a necessity for energy. But I do understand that it is a contributing factor when it comes to diabetes type 2 particularly. Can you give us a little bit of detail behind that and then some recommendations as to how we can eat to treat diabetes?
Okay, so your carbohydrates, they are very important. And yes, they are the major nutrient when it comes to diabetes. They give us energy, they provide the body with many different things that we need. But when it comes to diabetes, what we see happening culturally, we love our carbohydrates. So we call our starchy foods, we love them. We tend to load up our plates. We love the rice, we love the pasta dishes and the macaroni. And sometimes what you see too happening is a combination. So, a lot of persons will combine different starches or carbohydrates, as we say, and put them on our plates. And when it comes to diabetes, what we have to remember is portion control. So it is not to tell persons that you cannot have your carbohydrates if you are diabetic. It is not to say that, your carbohydrates are bad. As I said earlier, like they are important, but the portion is actually very, very, very important. And not just the portion, but also the quality of the carbohydrate that you are consuming, because not all carbohydrates are created equal. So when it comes to diabetics, we always encourage our high fiber carbs, or what we call our complex carbs. We are looking at things like whole wheat and whole grain products. We are looking at things like our cereals that are whole grains, like our rolled oats and these type of things. And we try to encourage more consumption of these complex carbs, but still within the recommended portions that they need to be consumed in, which would help us to better, manage our blood sugars. Yes, so the carbohydrates really are important, and we also need to pay attention as well to other different nutrients, because it's not just the carbohydrates. Balancing your plate is really important when it comes to blood sugar management, because we see where the proteins and the healthy fats help with that blood sugar regulation as well. So all these factors combined are really important in terms of the blood sugar management.
One of the things that we've seen shared on social media and in conversation when it comes to portion sizing particularly is that a portion should be the size of your fist or the palm of your hand. Is that correct, Ronique?
So we do use certain hand measures, yes, to help us when it comes to the portions. And yes, we do tell persons like the size of the fist or the palm of the hand when it comes to things like your protein foods is appropriate, and like the fist when it comes to your carbs. We do make those recommendations to help persons just to have a visual guide, because everyday lives, it's very difficult to tell persons, okay, measure out a cup, measure out 1/3 of a cup. So yes, our hand guides are usually very, very useful strategies in helping persons to just portion out things properly. And if I can provide just like a visual of what that may look like, we always tell persons, when it comes to your plate, you have a normal standard 9-inch plate. If you divide that plate and you set aside 1/4 of the plate for your carbs or your starchy foods, and you use 1/4 for your protein foods, and then you dedicate the next half towards your vegetables and high fiber foods, then you get a general sense of, the portions and how you're supposed to go about setting out the plate to make sure that you're having these foods in the right quantities.
Thank you so much for that, Ronique. Greatly appreciated. Some good guidance as we try our best to continue to take care of our health. And also, Aneika, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure. Have a wonderful day and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. Same to you.
Bye.
We're going to take a quick break right here on the Now Morning Show and be back right after this.